working with sound all day, silence is really the best recreation I can have. I find that any noise is capable of distracting you from the musical concentration you are experiencing as a listener. Going out into the woods, the nature sounds has an organic gentleness to it. It really helps me to recalibrate my brain. And it reminds me about some clear references about timbre, about levels. It's a good calibration tool, and it's a mental necessity. Hi, Bo.
Hi, Morten.
I want to give the listener the most exciting experience possible. And to me, that is on stage with the orchestra and with the musicians. I want to be, as a listener, I want to be the centerpiece of the experience. And the performance takes place around me. Presently, there's much discussion going on in immersive audio, whether to work channel-based with bed or object-based. But in the end, a playback environment, a target will always be channel-based in their speakers. So whether you go and work with objects or beds or a mixture of the two, it's more a method of workflow. I would say there is more of a difference in approach when going into the recording session, where you have the holistic three-dimensional space where the music is actually happening, or whether you do a layered recording in studio where all the sound sources are point sources, and then your listening space is actually created by panning. That's immersive audio. I've created a three-dimensional microphone array, which is pretty much a capture for the channel-based playback environment. So it's a 7.1.4 microphone array. The same configuration as you see in a playback system, just shrunk down in dimensions. This represents the listener of the recording session, with all the microphones in the array being omnis. Everything that's happening in the room is in every microphone. What creates a sense of envelopment is actually the development of that correlated sound through the placement of the microphones in the array. This also translates in the playback environment to a very large sweet spot. I still have a sweet point where everything is ideal when it comes to the listening environment. But the area you can move around within the speaker layout, it's huge. The contrast is really a mix which is built from point sources, where the only information you have about the localization of a source is power in how it's panned. And you only have that information from that direction. But using the array with omnis, you have a huge sweet spot to your listening. For musical reasons, we prefer to have everyone performing at the same time in the room. With very many musicians, as soon as they see the setup and preferably also have experienced how it can sound, they can start to play with it. Like you can have an improvising trumpet player who actually figures out, ooh, if I play down into the floor, then it sounds like this. I can turn away from the microphones and it comes back through the room. Or I can lean up and play straight into the microphone array. And that's the point where three-dimensional audio and the interactivity with the musicians really starts to blossom. And as a listener, you will have a much more exciting experience. With larger ensembles, I work with the composers and we actually direct the orchestra, make the layout, how the soundscape should work in a musical context. Then the composers might start to write music with this three-dimensional experience in mind. And at some point, everyone says, okay, this looks pretty scary, but let's do it. And then we're ready for recording. For our recording sessions, there isn't one room that is perfect. There is a wide range of different acoustics that we choose from whatever kind of music we are creating. Of course, personally, I have a great love for these huge spaces, like the Nidaros Cathedral, where you have this old medieval cathedral, 110 meters long, 40 meters to the ceiling. Surprisingly enough, this is where you can make the most intimate recordings, because there is so large a distance to the close reflecting surfaces. So when you can create an intimate zone in these rooms, which are very textured, and then it just continues out into the big wide space. Our surroundings in the Scandinavian countries are pretty quiet. We are used to a quiet background noise. We try to implement that care also in our recordings. So we take great care to find venues that are silent. But even these millennial-old cathedrals, they have been updated with modern equipment, like lighting systems, CPUs, computers, whatever. So the first thing we do in these venues is to take out all the power in the circuit breaker. And we just take back what we need for our equipment. We even bring our own lighting system, which is totally quiet, to the venue. This is important to me by many reasons. First of all, a lot of the music that I love to work with is very dynamic. It's very large-scale music. And having a black carpet for that sonic experience, that's very important to me. We have to follow this up all through our signal path in our production. The microphones needs to have a high sensitivity and a low noise floor. Our mic preamps and converters need to be super clean. Our capture needs to be as pure as possible, and that means the absence of noise and distortion. Deliberate distortion can be a very effective tool to create a sound or to change a sound. But in my type of recordings, I need to capture exactly what is going on. I might use the placement of the microphones, the pointing of the on-axis response to emphasize something, a quality I seek or something I want to avoid. But basically, I want to have as clean a capture as possible. Because distortion, per se, in this context, would be a distraction. from the experience of an acoustic instrument. So it's really, really important to have a very, very clean signal path, no distortion, as little noise as possible, and the full timbre. On the microphone side, I use almost exclusively true omnidirectional microphones. I have found that in true omnis, there is a special personality to the capture of the sound. And I do believe that it has to do with the linearity down in the ultra-low frequencies. The omnis managed to capture the full body in the same way as you stand just in front of an instrument, and you not only hear an instrument in a room, you actually feel the instrument. The feeling part of the sound, an omni can capture that. That's very, very difficult to get with a cardioid. But I still want to give some kind of directionality in my toolbox with the microphones. So I've ended up using a slightly larger diaphragm microphones, the 4041s, which has quite an on-axis presence, which makes it possible for me to use their directionality to actually tailor the timbre of the sound that we are recording. So if I want a very, very direct textured sound from the strings, I point them directly onto it. If I want more of a lush string sound, I would raise them and go a little outward, and they will be way softer. So in many ways, the directionality of the on-axis presence, that's my EQ when I do the capture. That's probably more to my own OCD, but I need to have symmetry left-right. Not necessarily front to back, but left-right, I need symmetry. So I always move them and angle them in pairs. I also try to capture at a nominal gain within the whole microphone array. Meaning, I know from the sensitivity sheets that my bed layer microphones have 3 dB more sensitivity than the microphones I use in the heights. So, at recording, I add 3 dB of gain to the height microphones compared to the beds. That means that I bring home from recording a capture which has an acoustic nominal calibration all through the microphone array. In our post-production workflow, we create the immersive playback and a dedicated stereo at the same time. With these recordings, the stereo is really, really simple. It's your left, right, front, the omnis, that's it. Because even though the performance is happening in the 360 circle around you, these are omnidirectional microphones, so they will have the correct balance. What they do not have is the texture, the high frequency texture from what comes from behind. So what I do is to take the rear facing pair of microphones, put a high pass filter on them, and just add a little bit of high frequency texture from the rears onto the top. I've had a lot of questions over the years. Oh, won't you try these microphones? Oh, you should try that kind of microphones. Oh, you need to do ribbons. All kind of styles. And in the beginning, I felt kind of lack of adventurous when I said no. Because I had this very strong idea that it is more important for me to really, really know whatever microphones I choose to use, to really know them so well that if I hear something, and my reaction is I want to change it a little bit like that. Then I know that the microphones I use, I can tilt them 5 degrees this way, and I will get that, what I'm searching. That intimacy with microphones as the most important tool in my trade, that is more important to me than having a large arsenal of many microphones.